Nino Fincher. Welcome to Studio 1211.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you.
I was thinking about it on the way in, and I truly believe that there's somebody that's going to be watching this somewhere at some point in time that is not only going to be blessed by our conversation today, but I actually believe that there'll be some transformation. And I was really excited when you sent me your responses to your questionnaire, because I really feel, for me as somebody that gets to interview, that those things allow me the opportunity to have a little bit better understanding of our guests, but also it gives me an opportunity to go back to the Lord and say, Lord, here's some information that I might not have had before. I have a better understanding of you, of your ministry, your business. Lord, what do you
want to do with this?
Yeah,
that's good.
Right. So, and I've had some responses from others that are like, man, those are a lot of questions. Like, this has taken me a lot of time, or I've had to put a lot of thought into it.
Wow.
And I think that's great too. But also I think that for me, it just really, it brings me to a place to where I could go before the Lord and say, Lord, do what you want with this.
Yeah.
Just use me.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is really kind of a neat symbol of not only my life, but for many Christians, is that I think it's the Japanese art of kintsugi.
Yep.
And I could be pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah.
But an artist takes a piece of pottery or clay that's been broken and puts it back together with gold.
Yeah.
And not only makes it more beautiful, but makes it more valuable.
Yes.
And I think in so many respects that is a representation of my life.
Yep.
I spent 24 years running from the Lord after high school, and it was
you must be exhausted.
Oh my gosh, I've run
you
for
and
so
Jonah.
long. I've run for so long. Yeah. So I don't know how long it took Jonah, but thankfully I didn't have to go into
You
a
skipped
big
the fish.
That's
good.
That's
great.
That's awesome. That's good. I skipped the fish. So
should be a book title.
I skipped the fish. Oh, that's good. That's good. So I'd like to just kind of go through, the questionnaire to kind of give people a little bit better understanding and background of a little bit of who you are and what you do. So you're a coach. Would you consider it a life coach, or because I know there's a difference between coaching and counseling?
Yes.
Are you a coach or a counselor?
Yes.
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 Okay.
I think of it as a toolbox, a collection of things that allow you to help people in different ways, people with different backgrounds, and you use certain skills for certain hindrances or concerns or issues people come to you with, and others for others.
Okay.
But yeah, I have certification as a life coach, but and a certification as a purpose coach.
Okay.
So that's my coaching part.
Good.
Of helping people.
And I mean, one of the things that I've found with all of our guests really so far is that they've somehow, well, I believe the Lord has led them to a place where their business or their profession and the ministry that they've called them to have been united.
Yes.
And that's been the case with you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I started out in a counseling degree at a seminary.
Okay.
And so I did theology, and I did all of the requirements for licensure as a therapist in the state of Texas. And um, so it was a great program, and my interests kind of kept expanding. Like I love, studying theology, and I love psychology, and I love ethics, and so I studied that too later after graduating. And um, so all of those sort of things allowed me to see how God addresses everything, and being able to help people with that worldview and kind of wider perspective, as opposed to just attending to one specific issue that has to do with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I think allows for a more lasting change and a more comprehensive change. Not that other things and methods aren't effective, but I think everybody's talking about holistic health now, and
Right.
to me, holistic health encompasses all of what makes you human.
Right. Right. What led you? Was there something in particular that led you to go into? You said you went to seminary.
Well, I was raised in an atheist home,
Okay.
and with the death of my grandfather, it became really a painful time of trying to figure out the meaning of life, really, and what and
Right.
and what happens after. And so it led me into just studying a lot of things, and then getting my hands on whatever I could. Well, I read different religious texts, and I read philosophers, and so 3 or 4 years later, I kind of came to a conclusion that the evidence for the authenticity of the biblical text and the claims of Christ was so overwhelming and so vast and so serious, and so verifiable,
Right.
that it wouldn't be honest for anyone really who claims to want to know the truth to be faced with that and say, I don't really believe this. I mean, you either have to abandon it altogether and choose to reject it, or you have to come to a conclusion that there's that you have to follow the truth.
I think in reading Lee Strobel's testimony, he has a similar story. It's like you're overwhelmed with this preponderance of evidence.
Yeah.
I'd say my degree is in criminal justice, so I went the legal aspect, and you're looking at evidence and things like that. But I think I agree. You would have to make a conscious decision that there's so much evidence out there.
Yeah.
For the truth, that you would have to knowingly completely ignore and reject.
Yeah. And that's honest. That's fair. I don't recommend it, but but I think people who consciously make that decision are more sincere and in their conclusion than those who sort of straddle the fence and make excuses for why maybe that's not.
Well, I think
true.
It sounds like an interesting journey that you went through. Like you said, because you discovered these things. It was something inside you that led you down the path of learning with a desire to understand what that truth was.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I left and for about 24 years and just basically just ran away from any relationship with God. But I look at my experience. I grew up young as in a Catholic family, and that was an altar boy. So the things were very very religious,
Right.
Well, I could even say ritualistic.
Yeah.
When you learn to be an altar boy, there's a process of how mass progresses.
Sure.
There's an order of things.
Yep.
And I enjoyed the order because I enjoyed I think the predictability of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the opposite of that was, there was no freedom.
Mm.
There was no, what I would probably say now is, there was no evidence of the Holy Spirit flowing
Mm.
through through service.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the late 70s, um, which we've come to learn as the Jesus Revolution,
Yep.
especially in Southern California, because that's where we were.
Right.
It was in Southern
Right.
California. So I did run away for a long time.
Well,
Um, kind of had a similar journey of, especially in college, of, okay, well, I've always loved science.
yeah,
I think science is cool. I think science helps to explain, the world around us,
that's right.
but it doesn't explain a lot of things.
No.
Still walk around with that little empty space,
Right. Yeah.
in the heart. But yeah, at some point it was like, okay, yeah, I come to a similar conclusion that um, I explored enough, I investigated enough,
Mm-hmm.
kind of went through my whole, legal side of
Yep.
evidence, and come to a similar conclusion
Yeah.
that, what, there's definitely something to this.
Yeah.
So I think at one point, it doesn't seem like it was that too long ago, I was like, okay, well, God, let's give it another shot,
Mm-hmm.
if it's true.
Yeah.
So,
Um, several things. It's a shame. A friend of mine, Ravi Zacharias, used to say, you cannot judge a religion by its abuse.
mm,
And unfortunately, well, many people are faced with that. And so they make a conclusion by observing those who abuse the faith without ever getting to the bottom of, or getting curious about what it actually
right.
teaches or says. And that's very disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's heartbreaking that people who represent, or who claim to represent something, completely become a turnoff for those who, already have, like, again, Ravi used to say, content preceding or the intent preceding the content. So if you don't want for there to be a God, like Huxley used to say, then you will look for the evidence or the conclusions or the opportunities to dismiss it rather than genuinely seek the truth. And so I think that if Christ has any credibility, that becomes what everything falls and stands on. And really the foundational thing to decide for yourself is, does what he say have credibility? Because if it does, then the implications are very significant. And if he doesn't, then
Right.
well, you can go your own way and just keep running. But it's I'm glad you tested and verified. And
well, I think it's interesting, and I guess I would try to paraphrase what you said is it's, or that what I got, the message is when you explore and investigate things on your own, you're curious on your own. And also, I think keeping an open mind is when you do come to the conclusion that Jesus is the truth, is the way, the truth, and life. That belief is more solid. I often wonder, and I've yet to talk to anybody, but for people that maybe grew up in church, who lived a great life, never ran away like I did, or maybe even never had an experience growing up like you did, that they've always been in the church and have always had their faith, and maybe not even had it tested. How I just wonder, not how genuine is it, but maybe how strong is it?
Or
You
how
know?
thought through.
Right,
Perhaps it is.
right.
I mean, my husband was raised that way. Yeah, but at some point in life, he had to make a decision on whether or not this was his faith or his family's faith,
Mhm.
and if not that, then when people are faced with painful circumstances where they have to um, lean into something or reject something, the hope is that that will allow them to really, think through
Right,
whether or not they should hold on to what they believed.
right, right.
Wow.
Um, so a little bit more on your background. So I think it's interesting that you have spent some time in the Middle East.
Mm.
And recently I spoke to a guest who has a global ministry. Not global ministry. So their ministry supports missionaries globally.
I see. Okay.
Not that he has it. Just want to clarify.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we had discussed was Christian persecution.
Well,
And someone who has traveled to the Middle East, someone who has shared the gospel
yeah.
in those areas of the world, have you seen um, religious persecution? Um, and what is that like? Because I don't think we as Americans really understand what it's like out in the world for other Christians. Um, and I'm concerned about that because you know what would happen to people's faith if persecution came to the United States?
Well, it would be a lot of clarifying for sure and separating and decision making. One of the things you mentioned earlier was, well, they will, the passage in the Revelation that says, by the word of their testimony and by the blood of the Lamb is how you overcome.
Right.
Why by the word of your testimony? Why is that significant and important?
Mhm.
And not something else. Because that is something that nobody can take away from you. That is your experiential knowledge and reminder of how you know that you know
Right.
that so that's significant. We have friends in several countries at the moment that I shall leave unnamed in the Middle East who are in prison currently.
Wow.
There are several who have who managed to escape and have been rejected by their family.
Wow.
So they pray that God will draw the families to Himself so that they can resume communication with them, because otherwise they don't have any.
Yeah.
So it's especially for people in that context, when they decide to follow Christ, it costs them everything. And
what do you mean by everything?
by everything, I mean it will cost them their job. It will cost them a relationship with their father and mother, a wife, perhaps children, their siblings. It will cost them an opportunity to live in their country at best. And the worst possible scenario will cost them their life.
Wow.
And it's serious. And we know people who have suffered that way, are currently suffering that way. So it's somebody said people, Muslim background believers, for instance, make really powerful Christians because they surrender so much, understanding that would be a possibility if they were to follow Him. But if truth matters, then convenience should become secondary.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it flippantly, I'm saying it understanding profoundly how very um, emptying and brutal and lonely that can feel
Right.
for people who consciously make that decision,
Mhm.
continue to make that decision every day. So,
Um, as a Christian woman in the Middle East, how is how is a woman's experience in the Middle East even contemplating Christianity? How have you observed that to be different than maybe the the man's role or contemplation of of converting to Christianity?
I don't know that there's much of a difference, really. I think it's difficult, no matter who you are. Women, generally speaking, seem to be leading when it comes to religious or matters of faith. I think because they're mothers, and they have that influence on their children initially as they're growing a lot more, and also because of the relationships and how the relationships are built a lot faster and easier, and or tend to be with females than they are with men. But I think it's hard on anybody, really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think over the past few years we've heard more of the church, the body of Christ, growing in the Middle East, and with God using women. And here in the American church, we're going to argue whether or not women have a position within the church.
Mhm.
But clearly, we'll see in the Middle East and around the world
Yeah.
where God is specifically using women to advance
Mhm.
His kingdom and to take territory
Yeah.
and in countries.
Mhm.
And I wonder, I mean, what are your thoughts um, when you were talking about women and mothers and having an influence on children? The word that came to mind is relationships and relational, because you know I believe that our faith is based on a relationship with
Right.
Christ.
Sure.
So by nature of the Christian faith, it's relational.
Yeah.
Unlike everything else that I've tried to learn about and study other faiths,
Mhm.
other religions, that is that that is one distinct characteristic or quality about Christianity.
Yeah.
It is very relational.
Right.
So I think it's it's interesting that it's almost like uh, it's not funny, but it's interesting that Jesus being wanting a relationship with each and every one of us, that he would say at this time in history, I want to use women because they're more relational between men and women
Mm.
to actually spread my gospel in an area that and by many means would completely
Yeah.
reject the message.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the percentages are personally. I think it goes both ways. I mean, there are a lot of men who are drawn to Christ in places that are very difficult and don't welcome the message as well. And it's not recent. I mean, God used women from the very start to communicate his message. And
Wasn't the first convert or the first what's the word
witness.
evangelist
Okay.
was the woman at the well.
Yeah. Yep. And and the women who witnessed the resurrection were the first ones.
Yep.
And the um, women who served Christ were there. I mean, women, prominent women that are addressed in the epistles as, having influence and significance and welcoming the apostles, etc., etc. So, but I think it's true. It wouldn't be fair to say women kind of are leading the movement. I think men are seeing the truth and coming to Christ as well in those countries.
Yeah. So, one of the when I think about what God is doing in the Middle East and advancing His church there, and I contrast it with the American church, especially like the last 30, 40, 50 years, is we see much more of a home church model in the Middle East, where it is focused on relationship. It is focused on more of an intimate connection with amongst believers versus the American church, where we've elevated one person to teach us everything we know about God and Christ and the Holy Spirit, as opposed to that that model is more of it's a one way versus that relational learning and growing and developing and I would even say more of a discipleship model.
I mean, a good church will have a good discipleship ministry. And if a church is really large groups that are sections to create that kind of relational interaction make a big difference. And I've been to churches who have done that very well, and to churches who haven't. But definitely in the places where there's a fear of danger to those who become believers, that's a lot more common, and just by virtue of where they are and what happens if they speak publicly about it.
Right. Kind of want to go back to your testimony as far as finding Jesus and discovering truth. I had a brief experience in college with Campus Crusade for Christ.
Right.
And I never really understood their ministry, but I thought it was neat that you had referenced that that was part of your testimony. And you coming to Christ.
The people who were affiliated with the Campus Crusade for Christ, it's called Crew now, were on our campus, and they were just like additional educational opportunities you have. Like they had some space where they taught the Bible. And I didn't go there to study the Bible. I went there because they spoke English and I was learning English. And so that's how I was first confronted with some of the questions that I hadn't really thought through. And at some point they asked me to translate for them, which is great practice for somebody, again, who's learning the language. And so that forced me to look at the text more. And study more and ask more questions. And so that was my initial experience. And so I should say that really I came to believe to a great extent through the work that I did with the Campus Crusade, through people who represented Christ well.
That's cool.
With our campus.
Well, that's neat. One of the scripture that you included as being something that's meaningful, because like I shared before, the studio is named because of a scripture that's meaningful to us here. And you picked John 11. I am the resurrection and the life. So why did you pick that? Why? What does that scripture mean for you?
It means a lot of things. But one of the things that I will mention is um, it reminds you of the temporary nature of what we're experiencing here, and how limited the time that we have here is, and how, if what Christ said is true, then um, the investment that you make with your talents, energy, and gifting that God has given you makes a difference long term, eternally.
Right.
And so, definitely, that's one of the reasons that I mentioned.
That's good. That, I mean, you know a little bit about, you know, what Tina and I have experienced in our family recently.
Yeah.
We made a decision to adopt, and
Yep.
At 56 years old,
Amazing.
I never imagined, that I would be
Yep.
a new dad again. But I think similar questions went through my mind. Is that, and I've talked to other Christians that have said, oh, I could, that are my age or our age, and said, well, I could never do that. And I'm like, I just want to say, well, why?
Yeah.
Maybe they've never been asked, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they've never been presented with the question of doing something that's potentially very difficult.
Yeah, of course.
But I think I went through the similar process, and in my times of prayer is like, okay, well, I can list all the reasons why I shouldn't, why I should say no to God.
Yep.
And tell him that I can't.
Yeah.
Do this thing that he's asked me to do.
Yeah.
But what was amazing is when God did ask me, and there's a whole story, it's a quite funny story on how that happened.
Yeah.
Is the Holy Spirit showed me in a fraction of a second all the reasons why I should say yes.
Interesting.
So I was given the choice.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, Nino, that I keep going back to is, yeah, I might be 56. I don't know how long I have on this earth. But regardless, how much better is it to serve God and do what he's called you to do, walking in faith, even if I have 10 years.
Yeah.
Even if I have 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great. I've always wanted to live to be 100.
Okay.
Because I've had some grandparents that have been, early mid-90s.
Amazing.
So since, I think, 2nd or 4th grade, I've always...
That was the plan.
That was like, yeah, God willing, I want to see...
Yep.
I want to see 100.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't happen, how cool is it to be called to do something and actually be obedient?
Yeah.
And he's just showed me, even in Scripture, why you should say yes to God. And I think one of the things that we'll get to, is the Great Commission. One of the things that you share in your responses to the questionnaire was making Christ known, which made me think of the Great Commission, and then the Great Commission, especially in Mark's account,
right?
Which I think more people. It's just my opinion. More people tend to go yes, go to Matthew. But I like Mark's account of the Great Commission. Is that when Jesus calls the disciples, to share the good news and to go out into all the world. It's the part after that I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
And in Mark's account, it describes basically the disciples saying yes, that they actually said yes
Yeah,
to
they had a
Jesus.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it says that they stepped out in faith.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting after that is that Mark says, and God came alongside them
Yeah.
and co-labored with
God.
them.
Yep.
And then there was fruit.
Yeah.
So Mark's account outlines this beautiful, kind of going back to my religious experience as a
Yep.
youth of being structured, that there's an order to God's divine plan,
Of course.
that the yes comes first.
Yeah. Yes. It comes before the fruit you produce. You're the gardener. You
Yeah.
know exactly how that happens. You can't,
Yeah.
you can tweak and, and try, but unless you're rooted
Right.
and, and abide in the source of all the nutrients and everything that a plant needs, it's not happening. So you can say yes and divorce yourself from God and attempt to do it in your own strength, and good luck with that. But what I like about the account in Matthew is that, and I think what a lot of people neglect when they read is they go directly to "Go ye therefore," but really that verse starts with "All authority has been given to me. Go ye therefore," and so it starts really with the authority of Christ.
Right.
Then your yes, and then him demonstrating how it's really done, because he's the author and the finisher of your faith, and
Right.
without him, yet I can do nothing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that the authority was given to us way back at creation,
Right,
like that God gave us that,
right,
and then we fast forward to Matthew or Mark's account is, and then God co-labors
yes,
is that, we have the authority, but He has the power, and there's again the word relationship,
right,
that it takes that relationship
right,
in order to bear fruit.
100%. Because without him, I can do nothing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to mention, I think with you guys becoming parents to the child you adopted, the him understanding what it's really like to be adopted into the family of God. What's a better illustration than what he's experiencing right now as he grows up? I think it's just so remarkable. And God doesn't call everybody to that, but those who are called to that, to say yes, is really an opportunity to display how God really loves all of us. And I just think it's marvelous. And I just kudos to that.
Yeah, I often think about the example of the apple. Anyone can open up an apple and see how many seeds are in an apple, right? But only God knows how many apples will come from a seed,
right?
And I often think about that, in relation to the adoption. Is I don't, I'll probably never know, what kind of impact on the world there will be, through his seed.
Yeah.
Through his
sure.
impact. And I really hope that, our conversation or the other conversations that I've had, are encouraging to people, because people can make an impact anywhere.
Yeah.
And everywhere. It doesn't have to be something big and grand like, an adoption, or, being a highly elevated political figure, or, being a billionaire or trillionaire, or having high status. I think people often overlook that, they can change lives just in their own spheres of influence.
100%.
Even in their own home.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I like about being a purpose coach is that the one of the greatest aspects of what is aligned and linked to purpose is fulfillment. And a lot of the people and a lot of my clients who end up with me uh, will live in a frustrated state because they're trying to fit into different systems that aren't their purpose, that aren't what they're designed for.
Right.
And, you can have massive aspirations, like you said, in politics or whatever, making, building a company. But if that's not what you are most fulfilled through and with, then you're really wasting time where you can make tremendous impact and have an influence that will be a lot more lasting than if you were to do something that the guy next door is trying to do.
Well, how does your coaching and counseling, your modalities, help people kind of answer that question of, what's my purpose and why am I here?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a question that a lot of people have, growing up or, at least I had for many, many years.
Yeah.
Is I thought I knew what I wanted,
Right.
but I was, I was, I was the dump truck trying to, drive around the Indy 500 racetrack, right? Like I was trying to do something that I wasn't built for.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of people are. That's why they're frustrated. I think people misunderstanding what purpose is, and or having a perception of what it probably is. People identify it as passion, which is not really accurate. There are all these aspects of it that fit into it. But so what I help people with who are in transition, that includes veterans coming home. That includes CEOs who want to retire and do something meaningful with their lives, or teams who are frustrated because there's competition and stress because every individual team member does not understand what their specific purpose is and how to align it with the mission of a company, or team students who are graduating and trying to figure out what am I going to do with myself next, et cetera, et cetera. So I use a purpose test that gives a comprehensive overview of a lot of the factors that identify how you are designed, what fulfills you the most. And then in my coaching program, we go over the results of the test and fit it into whatever it is that the client is trying to identify, whether in personal life or in business. And it's in my opinion, it's one of the most effective ways to really get to the center of this is why I'm here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I love that. But when it comes to therapy, I say that I help people find purpose and eliminate everything in between that hinders it, or that stops them on the way, because we are held hostage by a lot of the things that dictate how we think, that dictate our identity or pain from the past. And so rapid therapy allows me to get right to the root of the problem and help people rewire it through neurolinguistics and the modalities, the combination of the modalities that lets me help people in under 2 sessions.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I love it.
I had no idea that that sounds transformative.
Yeah, it's really great. And, and people, leaders I work with don't have time. I work with a lot of the CEOs. They need to make decisions quickly. They have, schedules that are ridiculous. And, and some of the veterans that I work with, I mean, some of the guys are ready to shoot themselves, which is heartbreaking,
right? Because
there's no clarity and there's frustration, just a depth of pain that is surmountable for some. So to be able to get people like that very quickly to seeing hope and seeing clarity and seeing what steps to take is just so incredibly fulfilling. I love it.
It's people. Oh, you mentioned CEOs. They want to see results.
Of course,
they're results driven, results oriented. So when you do these, when you administer these tests, what areas of we talked about holistic approach before.
Yes.
Are you looking at the whole person in their whole life,
Yeah.
or just in their business or personal life?
Mm.
And then kind of what areas are, how many areas, and what are the areas of a person's life are you assessing?
Addressing.
Yes.
Okay. So there are three ways that I help individual clients.
Okay.
And I work with individuals and teams. So, but with individuals, I do rapid therapy, and usually for rapid therapy, a client will come to me with a specific issue that they want to address or fix. Depression, anxiety, insomnia, lack of motivation, whatever that one thing is. And so we zero in and narrow that thing down and get to the root of it and transform it.
Okay.
Um, and that happens in one session, really.
Wow.
So the people who are coming for purpose then go through the purpose test. And through purpose test and coaching, we assess how they make decisions, what their pattern and style is for decision making, because that's important. What is their natural affinity that they're born with, what their passion is, kind of what their strengths are and values and strengths. How are they most fulfilled, and what frustrates them the most? And so there are all these variables that kind of come together to
Right.
give a really clear picture of this is, how are they best led, and how do they lead others as well. And so then we take the results and we basically just kind of fit them into what they need to be doing or what they shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
And then the third way is some people who want a little bit more extensive engagement with me sign up for the coaching program, which is a little bit longer, roughly, 2 or 3 weeks. It depends on what kind of how it fits the client's schedule. And it includes both of those things plus a little bit more. And the little bit more is me going through their physiological kind of assessment, like what is your body doing? What is your emotional state like? Relationships, et cetera, et cetera. What is your mental engagement, how you think and how you make decisions, and what your spiritual kind of umbrella of how it all fits into how you live is. And so it's a lot more detailed, and there are a lot more assessments and assignments and work, and it's for people who are into that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it depends on kind of what a client comes with.
Okay. So you did mention spiritual. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, how does your ministry, how does your faith fit with the coaching and counseling?
So anybody who comes with me and reads anything about me knows that my worldview and foundation and the view of a human heart is that of the Bible. I mean that, and so that informs kind of how I perceive what the concerns are, and so that's how it's framed. Now, I don't push my faith onto anybody, especially clients who come from other worldviews who don't want to engage in talking about the Bible, et cetera. Obviously, that I honor my clients, but I understand the condition of human heart and the systems that are built into how we operate as systems that God positioned. So I don't have to be talking about the Bible in order to get you to the result that helps you and moves you forward. But it moves you forward because God positioned those systems there in the same way that you can't harvest in the winter and plant at like there's an order to how you do things. So
people know,
if people know
up front,
yeah,
that you have a biblical worldview as you approach your
especially in coaching. Yeah.
That's neat. One of the things that caused me to kind of pause and dig a little deeper myself in your responses to the questionnaire was making Christ known. And I'm like, so my first question was like, what does that mean? So what does that mean to you?
Um, we're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fact. And it's, it's, um, it's something that we have to sooner or later think about. And, some people, believe that after you die, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if they're right, they have nothing to lose.
Right.
But if what Christ said is true, and your decision and your conclusion about who he is and whether or not you will choose to welcome that into your life um, affects eternity, then you have everything to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so God didn't call us to shove our faith down anybody's throat, to convince anybody, to drag anybody into our belief system. He wants us to give a reason for the hope that is in us, according to the Bible, when asked, and to live out in such a way that the God that we represent is reflected.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what that means to me is being able to love people so that they want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
Living a life through difficult circumstances and challenges in a way that points to something that is more hopeful than most people when they go through it, and having an opportunity to explain why.
Right.
And again, like I mentioned before, the investment that you're making, nothing is going to last forever, except for people and God.
Right.
Everything else perishes,
Right.
and so if those are the only two things that last, then I want to make an investment that will allow people to see clearly that the decision they make about who God says he is will make a difference in how they spend eternity.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, like I said, I didn't know what that meant, making Christ known.
Mhm.
So I did some digging myself, and I was
Yeah.
like, well, what I found was very similar to the first message that I recorded here for this podcast, and that was about what is Christianity? What is the Christian faith? Like if we were to describe to somebody who had never
Yes.
heard about Jesus, never heard about Christ,
Mm-hmm.
what this whole Christian faith was about, what can we really hang our hat on? And it led me to the same conclusion, and the key concepts of making Christ known from what I discovered
Yes.
was the first thing was the Great Commission.
Well,
That's part of making Christ known is sharing the gospel with others. You touched on this, and it on the second point is being ambassadors for Christ. How do we share with the world, our relationship with Jesus? And then, the phrase "actions speak louder than words" comes to mind.
Yes.
And it's that demonstration. It's in those times of hardship, or when you're coaching a veteran or a CEO or somebody who's dealing with trauma,
Yeah.
or grief, that we're presenting the character of Christ.
Yes.
As an ambassador, that we are modeling, we're modeling Jesus. What I think is it's so amazing of how question is how do we disciple others, is well, how did Jesus disciple? He modeled certain things. you know, and as ambassadors for Christ and making Christ known
Yeah.
to those that we come in contact with.
Yes.
It's, you know, it is sharing that the character of Christ
Yeah.
with people that we know, and I don't feel like I really understood what that meant to be a Christian or to live the Christian walk until I really started investigating for myself.
Yeah.
You know, much like you did, and coming to Christ and coming to faith and coming to truth is
Right.
that you know, okay, so if this is what a Christian is, how does a Christian behave?
Yes.
You know, and then I think the follow up question is does my life reflect
Right. Him.
yes?
Yeah.
Does it reflect him?
Yeah.
Am I doing what he showed us how to do and how to live?
Yeah. I think you know, Jesus never really overcomplicated anything.
No.
And so, I mean, number one, God says you are made in His image. What does that mean? And so that's an important question to answer. One. Number two, when He was asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" He said, "Love God and love your neighbor." What's love? Now you can, you know, discover that and talk about it more, but that's the bottom line. And then finally, his conversation with Peter, who said, you know, some people say this about you, some people say that, and she said, well, what do you say?
Right.
You know, everybody opines.
So
Bottom line is, what do you say about me? And so that is what everything rests on. And once you get clear on who He is, and decide to love Him with your heart, soul, mind, you know, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, then you can become an ambassador. An ambassador doesn't represent himself; he represents the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and the leadership of the country, or the king of the country that they are positioned there to speak for.
And part of that is, you know, an ambassador surrenders their own will.
Yeah.
To the authority of the one that they're representing.
Yep. You don't represent you represent somebody greater than you now.
Right. So let's go back to, you know, what you said is we're made in the image of in His image. So that makes me think of the word identity.
Right.
So in your practice, how important is identity?
Critical.
Like just
huge. Yeah.
Share with us about like how
Seriously, see that I'm writing a book now that's like chapter one of the book. So you'll have to have me over when it's wrapped up.
Okay.
But if anybody just came up and said, "Who are you?" What would be your immediate response?
It would probably be some physical description of who I was.
Okay.
You know, like I'm a man, or I'm a husband, or a father, things like that.
Right. And so that's a good question to ask yourself, and then figure out, why am I responding the way I'm responding? That's kind of that is where your foundation is going to be built and created for who you are, what your identity is. And but if you don't understand who you are and why, then it's like building on the sand. Like, you just don't know how to put a structure on there. I mean, you can, but it's just going to flip next time your neighbor or your cousin, you know, starts a business and you think you should be part of that, or you should be doing something that, you know, or you should be adopting kids because Brian adopted a kid. Did you know? So like, you have to understand who you are and why you are.
So what you're saying is identity is foundational.
Oh, that's critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you lead somebody from there? Like like if they don't even know who they are, much less whose they are.
Yeah.
So that being a foundation. So let's just say that you lead somebody through the purpose of understanding who they are. What are some of the key steps after that? And I guess I'm thinking more of a coaching versus the rapid therapy,
Mm,
because I understand that the rapid therapy is more about addressing maybe a
an issue.
specific
Yeah.
issue
Hmm.
versus maybe making some more foundational transformative changes on, and correct me if I'm wrong, and how people maybe live life or
Yeah.
react to life.
Hmm.
Would that be accurate?
Yeah. I mean, it really, everything stems from that, really. How you react to life, how you build relationships, who you choose for friends, why you respond to something, why you choose to invest your time in this and not invest in that. Um, I worked with a student uh, in a university recently, and one of the things the student told me, I don't even know who I am,
Mm,
which is heartbreaking.
yes.
Um, and and so everything was kind of collapsing because of that, because they didn't know whether to fit into something or choose to fit into something or engage or disengage or and so we decided that it doesn't matter that you don't know who you are. Why don't you decide who do you want to be?
Cool.
You know, so it's you're building a building. What do you want this building to look like? Does that make sense?
A school, a gas station,
What?
a
Yeah,
high
a
rise,
mansion. Yeah,
house.
right. So you determine what is it that you how do you want to show up? If you don't even know that, because that's overwhelming too. I don't even know what questions to ask. Identify somebody that you really look up to or admire, somebody you're drawn to, somebody you like.
Mm,
Tell me three qualities about that person that you like. Let's just start there
okay.
and tell me why. And how do you think, and then you bridge that and you translate that into how they can show up that way. And if they don't have that, then you decide to build that. But you get to determine who it is that you want to be if you don't know who you are.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't.
Right.
And a lot of people lose their identity after kids grow up and graduate,
Mm-hmm.
or after they're no longer running the company, or they're out of the military and now orders aren't happening and everybody is kind of in this slow motion here, and then they were running a sprint. And so we attach our image to things and idols and various ideas and concepts that are dictated by other people or other
Good.
circumstances or what's popular, and sort of abdicate uh, our own desire and determination of, okay, I don't know who I am, but how do I want to show up?
Well, yeah. It seems like in the last 5 to 10 years, um, we've really experienced, kind of a crisis of identity.
Yeah.
Um, we see, things exhibited in culture,
Yeah.
um, that growing up in the 70s and 80s never imagined seeing.
Yes.
And, we don't need to go on about your, specific things, but, um, I just think it's really important, and I agree that it's foundational that knowing who you are and whose you are, and I just love that those questions is, if if you don't know who you are, um, pick somebody who you
Yeah.
do, and I think um, what I would recommend is what if we all pick Jesus.
Works for me. Yep.
instead of this political figure or this sports
Right.
athlete or this person on
Yes.
YouTube, that because that's what I was thinking. You asked that question, I was like, well, here's a few people that come to mind, um but I don't even know them,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Like you could think that
Mm-hmm.
but the whole iceberg principle comes to mind is we're just seeing
Yeah.
the best of somebody's life.
Yeah.
They don't, if we just use an athlete for an example, or maybe, what if your CEO or veteran clients is, we're just seeing, one snapshot of somebody's life, and we're completely missing so
Yeah.
much more.
Yeah.
So are we at danger when we ask that question of who we are, of idolizing the wrong person?
Yes. Well, but your question was, how do you even begin to understand what your identity is? And this, in cases where you just have no idea, like you're so overwhelmed and so lost and so unclear that that could be a starting point. I'm not saying adopt that identity. You're not supposed to be another person, but I'm saying there's something about somebody that appeals to you. Not how far they throw a ball. I don't mean that, not their skills, but their qualities. This person is trustworthy, like that. This person is reliable. They always show up when they say they will show up. Or when it was really difficult, they came to my house without me asking.
Right.
Or they just always know how to answer the question. So what is it? What are the things that appeal to you, and kind of dive deep into why? What makes that a character quality that is so attractive that you would want to emulate? And then start building. It's almost like building that armor, like start building designing the structure of the house or the blueprint, and put all the features on there that are appealing, and then start. I mean, it's a process. That's part of why it's a coaching program, right? So you can't just like do it overnight. I'm going to be a Superman. Yeah. Good luck. But it's a starting point for somebody who is so lost that they don't even know what questions to ask, let alone
Thank you for clarifying that for me, because now I understand that it's more character driven, versus skills.
Yeah, of course.
Or things that are superficial.
Right.
So that really helped me to understand how your coaching is really helps people and benefits them from to get to that that point. I know we only have a little bit of time left, I think. I'm not sure. Oh, are we good? Okay. We can edit that part out.
Okay.
I was concerned.
Your editor and operator extraordinaire.
Okay. 5. Okay. Great. You talked about overcoming fear and being right focused. One of the things that I wanted to kind of wrap up on, and I'll kind of preface this by contrasting my experience with what I'm observing today, is when I grew up, it was a Cold War era.
Yes.
Okay. In California, so I distinctly remember 4th, 5th grade. Not in elementary school.
Russians are going to get us.
Yeah, Russians are going to get us. Not only did we have fire drills, but we also had the nuclear drill.
Yep.
So that was always looming. And another thing that was, I think more unique about the California experience at that time was, earthquakes.
Yes.
We moved.
Right?
Still. We moved from California to Texas, and people are like, I could never move to California because of earthquakes. I'm like, well, you never know when they're going to happen.
That's the point. Hello.
we don't have an earthquake season.
Yes.
In Texas and Oklahoma and Florida, when tornadoes and hurricanes are going to happen. Right. How crazy are you to live in a place? That was kind of like my initial response.
Yes, but predictability. It's just so charming.
Right. You could plan and predict for it. But, and there's even a third thing, for me growing up, is my dad was in law enforcement for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And I remember being a child and having my mom say, yeah, I got a call from dad's work and your dad was injured. Or, knowing
Wow.
that his line of work
Yeah.
um, put him in
Danger. Yeah.
harm's way on a
Yeah.
daily basis. So, I learned, from a child to basically expect a disaster
Mm,
or something to happen, and
mhm.
it was just right around the corner.
Yeah.
Um, how I came to in my adulthood cope with that or learn from that or grow from that, uh, maybe even heal from that, is that it's one thing to think that there is something bad happen right, can happen anytime around the corner,
Mhm.
but also I think with having a relationship with Jesus, having a relationship with the Holy Spirit and the Lord, is that there was peace in knowing that in my relationship with Him, that if something did happen or when something happens, that He'll provide a solution. That there's uh, a solution to every problem,
Mhm.
a solution to every disaster. Some just take longer to find.
Yeah.
And that was kind of something that I learned, you know, going, of, 15, 18 years
Yeah.
of, you don't know if your dad's going to come home.
Yeah.
You don't know when there's going to be an earthquake.
Right.
Or you don't know when the Russians are going to nuke
Yep.
nuke
A
the
very
United
real
States. So
present danger.
all those things were like, looming in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about, the last 5 years, with COVID,
Yes.
since 2020. It seems like more people in society are living that
Mhm.
on a daily basis.
Yes.
And we've seen evidence of that. We've seen, the rise of fentanyl and the abuse, and some of the images that we've seen from, people
Yes.
that have succumbed to that.
Yes.
The drug and alcohol use, the child abuse and neglect
Yes.
that has happened. Um, you know, what could you recommend based on your ministry, your experience, for people that have been living in that kind of hyper stress state for the last 5 years?
Yeah.
What is something that we can, leave somebody with from today's session that says, hey, you know what? Right now there's a lot of stress going on.
Yeah.
The world is an uncertain place.
Yes.
People are getting laid off. Is AI going to take my job? All these things seems like, um, are just more of a hyper stress state.
Yes.
How can we share something with somebody that might be watching that could just, help them
Um,
cope or even start to transform into?
yeah. Three things, I
Okay.
think. Number one, we think that we are in some uniquely terrible situation. We're not. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, the world was destroyed during Noah. For those of you who believe that the
Right.
scripture is the truth, yeah, you talk about uncertain times. You didn't know what tribe was going to attack you tomorrow, and whether or not your country was going to be, you're going to keep wandering for another 40 years in circles, or do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or
Yeah.
your wife is going to be captured and etc. So uncertainty was always there.
Mm.
Um, so we what I'm trying to say is pain and and uncertainty and problems of the heart and of the mind are not new.
Mm.
Um, so um, you're talking about your era, the Soviet, the Cold War era.
Right.
Now there's danger of China attacking. I don't know. Like there's always something
Always
that
something.
we can always find something. Back then it was AIDS. Now it's COVID. Now it's going to be something. It was cholera. and all these other things. So this state is universal and at all times, and it goes across the board everywhere. So understanding that you're not alone and you're not the only one who is dealing with this is, I think, helpful. One. Number two, for people who claim Christ, we have to remember the verse that talks about the spirit that we've been gifted. We have not been gifted the spirit of fear, but of power and of sound mind. So what does that really mean? So I would go to that verse and just start learning about what a spirit of sound mind and a spirit of power actually means, and understanding what does it mean that you've been given that. Okay. And number three, practically speaking, I think your physiological response happens based on how your mind dictates a thought. And so when Christ talks about capturing every thought, I think people don't know how to practice that, or they read it and they hear about it, but they don't actively do it every time, because there's a lot of thoughts. Because you get 80,000 thoughts in your head is a whole lot of capturing, capturing, and it can be exhausting. But anything can become a habit and a second nature. Well, if it's practiced now, you don't have to think about how you walk anymore or how to ride a bike.
Right.
But you had to really think hard about both of those things at first. So whatever you practice becomes easier and easier. And I think identifying what the truth is and then allowing your whole system to adjust to that translates into hope. So some circumstances there isn't a solution to some things. Some things are final and heartbreaking. But what we do have is hope.
We do.
And you can anticipate extraordinary things if you understand who you have believed and who you represent.
Yeah. Is there a process to holding every thought captive?
Yes, but that's a conversation for another show.
Okay. Is it going to be in your book?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because I don't think I want to write any more books after that, and so I'm just going to put everything in there. But that's a plan anyway.
Okay.
So,
well, I have one of your books. How many books do you have?
This will be a second.
So I have what I believe is, you autographed and wrote a message.
A children's book
to Nolan.
Yes. So cute. That book actually was written for kids in the Middle East.
Okay.
Because it's a book on basically children's well-being and daily decisions a kid can make in order to be well, mentally and emotionally and physically. Written from a point of view of a puppy. And it was written because when we moved back to the States from the Middle East, the friends and their children missed my dog more, I think, than they missed me. And so every time I'd go back, they'd ask me how Kuba is doing and stuff. How's your family first? And so and so I decided to write something they can have in their hands, but also something that could be beneficial for them to learn how to ask the good questions or how to choose the things that bring hope and life instead of keep them in a morbid and defeated state.
How can people connect with you? What's the best way to learn more about your practice?
Thank you. I'm active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So that's an easy way to get in touch with me. Or they can send a message through NinoFit, NINOFIT.com.
Okay.
And that's how scheduling happens, and they can learn more on the website as well.
Okay. And then as far as LinkedIn goes, they just search
just look up my name.
Okay. And for those that don't know how to spell your last name?
It's Fincher, like a bird, finch.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Excellent. Well, Nina, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Our time flew today.
Great.
I think I probably have at least a dozen more questions that I could ask, or we could dive
Yeah.
even deeper. But I want to respect your time.
I appreciate that.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, because I think you bring a perspective that's really interesting to me, that and helpful,
Mm.
because you have some practical skills and knowledge and things, and especially your biblical worldview, that it can be very, very helpful to people that are maybe lost, hurt, or
Yeah, I
something
hope
today.
so.
So I'm believing that there will be people that will be reached, that will be blessed.
Yeah, I hope
And
so.
there will be an impact, a kingdom impact that we'll never know.
Yeah,
That
God willing. Obviously, that's why part of the reason I'm looking forward to heaven, because it'll be all these surprises of what you and I do that's useful for somebody we completely miss.
Right.
So it'll be nice.
Yeah. I think Jesus' return is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I actually haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about the whole eternity thing as much as I've thought about, the ruling and reigning.
Hmm. Yeah.
Almost like, is this my dry run? Like,
Hmm.
is this God working out some things
Maybe.
in me for the next phase? I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
It's like waiting for a volcano,
Right.
but in a good way. From a safe place.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. And just waiting on a volcano. Yeah, things will definitely be different in a really good way.
Yeah.
In a really good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Um, I think right now I'm just focused on the mission at hand.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing, living today.
Yeah.
That's what the Lord's Prayer is about, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
To us today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And I appreciate you and your wife and your family. You guys have loved us so generously through some difficult times, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's our pleasure. Our pleasure. But I love you guys very much.